almost 4 decades, WrestleMania has produced some of the most memorable moments and matches in WWE history. From Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant to Daniel Bryan overcoming the odds and becoming the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, the grandest stage of them all has definitely lived up to its moniker. But with a history as rich as WrestleMania, it's hard not to think about how some scenarios could have played out differently for better or for worse. So follow me and ponder the question, what if? At WrestleMania 30, The Undertaker's legendary streak came to a shocking end at the hands of Brock Lesnar. It was a surreal moment nobody ever thought would happen until it did. For years, people have argued whether or not Brock was the right choice to end the streak since he was already an established name at this point. And many fans, including wrestlers themselves, have given their takes as to who should have been the one to do it. Names such as Randy Orton, CM Punk, or even John Cena have all been thrown out there. But one name that stood out the most is the late great Bray Wyatt. Throughout his career, Bray has drawn a lot of comparisons to The Undertaker because of the spooky nature of his gimmick. In fact, he even started calling himself the new face of fear during their feud at WrestleMania 31. But as Ric Flair once said,
"To be the man, you gotta beat the man!"
So what if Bray Wyatt was the one who ended The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania 30? Instead of being fed to John Cena, a burial so bad it took Bray years to recover, we would have gotten a passing of the torch moment that catapulted his career into new heights. But then that leaves The Undertaker without an opponent for WrestleMania 31, which is the perfect segue for this next what if. When it comes to dream matches that never happened, Sting vs The Undertaker is definitely up there, maybe even number 1 on the list. The two legendary dark personas in wrestling never crossed paths due to Sting not jumping ship to WWE once WCW went down and spending most of his career in TNA after. By the tail end of 2014, however, the Stinger made his long-awaited WWE debut at Survivor Series. And for a brief moment, the stars have somehow aligned for this clash of two icons to happen at the grandest stage of them all. But WWE still somehow managed to f this up. Instead, what we got was Triple H versus Sting, an alright match with a baffling end which saw the icon lose his first and in hindsight only WrestleMania match ever. Had Sting faced The Undertaker, he would have still lost, but the amount of hype garnered from seeing these two legends stare each other down the ring would be Rock versus Hogan levels of insanity. So much so that it could have been the main event of WrestleMania 31. Speaking of, WrestleMania X8 had one of the most legendary matches in Mania history when The Rock faced Hulk Hogan in a dream match. About between two generational icons, it was a masterclass at working a crowd and almost everything was executed to perfection except for one glaring problem. It did not go on last. No, that honor went to Triple H versus Chris Jericho for the undisputed heavyweight championship, which ended up being a colossal disappointment. And to this day, people still shit on this bonehead decision. Even Chris Jericho himself believed that it was a mistake.
Yeah, let's be honest, main event in the fact it was on last, but the main event of the show was Hogan and Rock.
Had The Rock and Hulk Hogan main evented instead, then WrestleMania X8 would have been looked at as one of the greatest WrestleManias ever. Real quick, we're trying to get to 1,000 subs by the end of March, so your subscription would really mean a lot. Thank you. In an ironic twist of fate, Chris Jericho would get robbed of the main event spot almost 2 decades later. At WrestleMania 33, Roman Reigns handed The Undertaker his second only loss to close out the showcase of the Immortals. As important as the match was, seeing as this was initially gonna be Taker's final farewell, it just didn't live up to the expectations. And Chris Jericho would later on reveal in an interview that the original plan was for him to beat Kevin Owens for the Universal title in the main event. It made a lot of sense as they had the hottest feud going into WrestleMania after that brilliant Festival of Friendship segment which saw Owens turning on Jericho in a heartbreaking betrayal. Instead, what ended up happening was Goldberg squashing KO and winning the Universal title at Fastlane just to have a 4-minute match with Lesnar at Mania. And as for the Jericho versus Owens match, well, they got bumped to the second match of the show. Not the opener, not even second to the last, just a random placement in the card, fighting for a US title nobody really cared about as well. This blunder was one of the main reasons why Jericho left the WWE. And while we're on the topic of leaving, on January 27, 2014, CM Punk walked out of the WWE after years of pent-up frustration and resentment. He would get fired shortly after, and we won't see the voice of the voiceless in the WWE again until late last year at Survivor Series, where he made a triumphant return in front of a white-hot Chicago crowd. Well, there were many reasons that would surface as to why he left, from creative differences to an untreated staph infection. By far, the biggest one though is not being given the main event spot at WrestleMania. So what if WWE was able to prevent this mess from happening altogether by just giving the man what he rightfully deserved? If it were to happen though, the most likely candidate would be at WrestleMania 29. While Punk vs Taker was definitely the standout match of the show, many fans argue that he should have been added to the John Cena vs The Rock match instead, turning it into a triple threat. Punk has had a long-standing beef with both Cena and Dwayne, spanning back to the infamous pipe bomb promo where he called them ass kissers.
I don't know if you're as good as Dwayne, though he's a pretty good ass kisser.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
He obviously had some sort of resentment as well that they main evented WrestleMania 28 even though he was the champion at the time. Had CM Punk been in the main event, he would have absolutely elevated what was an otherwise average match between John Cena and The Rock. Of course, there's every bit of chance that he would still leave even after he got what he wanted. I mean, it's CM Punk we're talking about here. But if anything, he definitely would be less bitter after his exit, so his return might have happened way sooner. Another dream match between two legends that never happened. It's even crazier that these two never crossed paths since they were in the same promotion for years. Granted, they were mostly on opposite brands for the majority of it, but that didn't stop Angle vs HBK from happening, did it? And we were so close to getting it as well. Speaking about this in his Something to Wrestle podcast, WWE executive Bruce Pritchard confirmed that there were indeed internal plans to have Shawn Michaels face Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 22. Unfortunately, Eddie would pass away a few months before the show of shows, so Shawn ended up fighting Vince instead. It wasn't a bad one by all means, but something tells me that a match with Eddie freaking Guerrero would have been way better. Probably even on par to his match with Kurt Angle the previous year, which is regarded as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. WrestleMania 32 is widely known for being one of the worst WrestleManias ever. Disappointing matches, The Rock burying younger talent in 6 seconds, and worst of all, a boring ass main event. If not for the great Intercontinental title ladder match and the women's title match, this would be the worst WrestleMania of all time. And the saddest part is that the card could have looked very different had it not been hit with the dreaded injury bug. John Cena, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, and Sting were just some of the names on the long list of injuries. Had these stars not been out of action, we could have had a proper John Cena vs The Undertaker match, which was reportedly the original plan. Or how about the Shield triple threat happening at the grandest stage of them all instead of a C-level pay-per-view like Battleground? Still keeps me up at night thinking what could have been. As unfortunate as WrestleMania 32 was though, it's got nothing on 36. This one had the worst luck out of any WrestleMania in history as it happened right as the entire world shut down because of the COVID pandemic. There's a reason why it's called the grandest stage of them all, and seeing it inside of the Performance Center with 0 fans in attendance completely killed the spectacle of a premium live event. Which is a shame because the card itself was pretty stacked. If WrestleMania 36 had fans or just didn't get hit with the pandemic really, then we would have seen Roman Reigns vs Goldberg instead. Drew McIntyre would get a proper WrestleMania moment in front of thousands of fans, and almost every match would have just been better in general. On the flip end though, would we have gotten the cinematic matches which were both the highlights of the show? And would Roman Reigns still be the tribal chief if he didn't take a break and found the best version of his character? I don't know, tell me in the comments what you think. If there's one good thing that WrestleMania 36 gave us, it's the concept of a 2-night WrestleMania, which has been an absolute blessing, especially for those with short attention spans like me. One of the biggest knocks on the more recent manias before this change was that they're just too damn long. I mean, look at WrestleMania 35. If you include all of the pre-show stuff, it ran for about 7.5 hours.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Having 2 nights also allowed a match like Zayn and Owens versus the Usos to have the main event spot that it deserved, which wouldn't have happened if it were just 1 night. So if WrestleMania had been a 2-night event from the start, then most of the main event caliber matches that were overlooked would have gotten their due. I'm talking about matches like The Rock vs Hulk Hogan, Punk vs Jericho, and of course, The Undertaker vs Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. But what are your biggest WrestleMania what ifs? Share it in the comments below. Till the next video, have a nice day.